evil, we know in the field of this world, grow up together almost inseparably. And the knowledge of good is so involved and interwoven with the knowledge of evil, and in so many cunning resemblances hardly to be discerned, that those confused seeds which were imposed upon Psyche as an incessant labor to cull out and sort asunder were not more intermixed. Let me just pause here for a brief professorial interpolation. Psyche had a great big pile of seeds that Venus forced her to sort out overnight under threat of dire punishment. Imagine yourself wheat, rye, barley, trying to get that whole big mass sorted out by the next morning. She was saved by the ants, and so Venus was thwarted. But we have this mixture of good and evil, Milton says, like that pile of seeds that Psyche had to sort. To go on. It was from out the rind of one apple tasted that the knowledge of good and evil as two twins cleaving together leaped forth into the world. And perhaps this is that doom which Adam fell into of knowing good and evil, that is to say, of knowing good by evil. As therefore the state of man now is, what wisdom can there be to choose, what continence to forbear without the knowledge of evil? He that can apprehend and consider vice with all her baits and seeming pleasures, and yet abstain, and yet distinguish, and yet prefer that which is truly better, he is the true warfaring Christian. Okay. You just explain a little bit here about where Milton is coming from. Milton, as we'll find out when we get to Paradise Lost, understands that the state of people is fundamentally different after the fall of man in the Garden of Eden than it was before. The problem with censorship is that you treat people almost as if the fall had not happened, as if they don't have to navigate their way through a world which is difficult and which contains evil and which contains difficult choices. And Milton says, if you're going to live in a world like that, you can't pretend, you can't try to create an artificial state of innocence for people. They have to confront what's evil. They have to, in a sense, have an education in what is evil. Okay, so if you're lucky enough to get a professor who is teaching you the Marquis de Sade this semester, actually, there's a method in that madness. Okay, let's go on to the second paragraph. I cannot praise a fugitive in a cloistered virtue, unexercised and unbreathed, that never sallies out and sees her adversary, but slinks out of the race, where that immortal garland is to be run for, not without dust and heat. Assuredly, we bring not innocence into the world. We bring impurity much rather. That which purifies us is trial, and trial is by that which is contrary. That virtue, therefore, which is but a youngling in the contemplation of evil, and knows not the utmost that vice promises to her followers and rejects it, is but a blank virtue, not a pure. Her whiteness is but an excremental whiteness. Now, by that he just means the whiteness is on the outside. Since, therefore, the knowledge and survey of vice is in this world so necessary to the constituting of human virtue, and the scanning of error to the confirmation of truth, how can we more safely and with less danger scout into the regions of sin and falsity than by reading all manner of tractates and hearing all manner of reason? This is the heart of Aeropagitica. Milton reminds us that we are not living in the Garden of Eden before the fall, before Adam tasted the forbidden fruit. Rather, we have to have the knowledge to navigate through a fallen world. Here, Milton's Christianity comes out loud and clear, especially his reliance on St. Paul and how human beings must run their race in a sinful world. The theory of people who want to control what we read is that they can somehow enforce purity on people, keep them from sinful thoughts and sinning by protecting them from sinful ideas. In Milton's eyes, Catholic censorship and its index of banned books was the most extreme example of trying to keep people pure by shielding them from impurity. Well, Milton says this is absurd. You come into the world impure, and here he's got Augustine's doctrine of original sin in mind, which derives from St. Paul. And we live in an impure world. We can't be protected from impurity. We have to learn to deal with it as adults, and if governments and clergymen try to protect us from evil by controlling what we read, or to keep us from making hiring decisions they don't like, we'll just become stupider and more likely to go wrong. The true warfaring Christian, as Milton says, must understand evil and how it works and how to resist it. We cannot be kept in the nursery. Just to illustrate this, let me offer a story from my own life. When I was in junior high and high school, I started frequenting the Bad Axe Public Library, Bad Axe, which was located above the fire department. It was always a thrill while I was reading to hear the fire alarm go off underneath my feet while the engines rolled out the door. The library had a weird collection of books probably derived from the weird donations of the citizens of Bad Axe. For instance, they seemed to have every book on UFOs ever published. And I checked out most of them. They had dozens of paperback sci-fi books with covers of scantily clad women being carried off by robots and lizard men to unimaginable and one would hope genetically impossible fates. I embarrassed my mother by checking these salacious books out by the stack. When I was in high school, probably 9th grade or 10th grade, I checked out James Jones' The Thin Red Line, which is about the Battle of Guadalcanal. Months later, my father told me that the night I brought it home, he had read a good deal of it. The Thin Red Line has scenes of homosexuality, a very taboo subject for a Lutheran boy to be reading about in the 1960s. Combat, mayhem, deaths by friendly fire and accidents, stupid officers, corruption. It turned out to challenge every romantic idea I ever had about war. When my dad finally talked to me about the book, he said, "I was thinking of not letting you read it, but then I decided you might as well know the truth." That was one of the best gifts my father ever gave me, that access and that confidence. I'm tempted to say if only the president and the provost had confidence in the faculty, but I don't want to pay them the compliment of casting them as father figures. They are partners with the faculty. In matters of curriculum and instruction, they are junior partners. And at their best, facilitators of what the faculty initiates, not initiators of what the faculty is then ordered to facilitate. What scares the faculty in every campus like Fresno State is that we are slowly but surely, and not so slowly either, being relegated to the role of employees in a corporation run by professional administrators, many of whom have no experience in the classroom or very little, or are so happy to have left it that they do not want to look back. We are afraid that we are becoming cogs in what is essentially a corporate conglomerate offering the Palazzo, as Dr. Zumwalt said, is so ironically named, World Federation Wrestling and monster car rallies at the Save Mart Center. That's powering the new California. Big-time semi-pro athletics, and by the way, education as one of its subsidiaries. Okay, let's go to number 3.